Whether you are here in person or online, we are glad that you are joining us. My name is James Miller. I'll be your associate for today, and I will forego banter because we have a lot to get to today. If you wouldn't mind to set your cell phones on silent. We're a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, however you identify, wherever you come from, and whoever you love, you are welcome here. Our Sunday services are different each week so that we can honor and learn from our wide array of traditions and beliefs. Today, our speaker is Matt Foraker. He'll be speaking on cults, what are they, and how you can avoid becoming a victim. Though we each walk our own path here in this place, on the land of the Osage, the Cherokee, the Shawnee, and the Yuki, and now at this time, we journey together as one community. For Unitarian Universalists, the flaming chalice is a symbol of the light of learning and the love of our community. As our congregation's chalice is lit, please light your own chalice at home, if you have one, and join us in singing hymn 362, Rise Up, O Flame.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glow, show to us beauty and joy.
This morning, Roxanne Spencer will be giving our opening reading.
This is from Bell Hooks. Critical thinking requires us to use our imagination, seeing things from perspectives other than our own, and envisioning the likely consequences of our positions.
This morning, Forrest will lead us. Oh, I'm sorry. I put that in the wrong spot.
Please stand.
So we're excited to welcome some new members today, and our church board president, John Downing, will lead us in welcoming our new members.
The act of becoming a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bowling Green is a public statement that you have found this religious home and embrace our covenant. A member accepts responsibility for continuing and sharing the faith journey that brought them to this place, and for living in community with others whose journeys may be different. We now join in affirming our shared covenant. We'll stand. And of the Unitarian Universalist tradition through our individual gifts and talents.
Thank you. We now welcome our new members, Amy Deputy and John Thomason. Would you like to come forward? And we have, as we mentioned, the chalice, and we would like for you to get the flame from them and light one of the candles.
As president of this congregation, I greet you today on behalf of this gathered community, not only as new church members, but as new friends. We welcome you to our community and look forward to the future as we learn, grow, celebrate, serve, and support each other through the joys and sorrows of life. As members of this congregation, we all endeavor to grow spiritually, create community, and do the work of love and justice in the world. Will you join us in this work?
We will.
Will you speak the truth as you understand it with courage and love?
We will.
Will you endeavor to support this congregation financially and with your time, energy, and creativity? Will you support the ministries of this congregation, knowing that it's up to all of us to ensure this community remains vibrant? Members of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bowling Green, having heard the promises of these new members and knowing of their desire to join in covenant with this community, will you be the members of this congregation, welcome them joyfully, care for them in their joys and sorrows, and encourage them in their spiritual lives? We will.
So we're going to feed your stomachs and your souls. There you are. Thank you. I'm so glad to have you both.
We will now have a few moments for meditation, reflection, and prayer. The singing bowl will lead us into silence. After the silence, you're invited to join us in singing the song Spirit of Life. The words will be on the screen. As mentioned earlier, Unitarian Universalists have a wide array of beliefs, and the speakers at our Sunday services come from many traditions. Here to share their thoughts today is Matt Foraker. Matt Foraker, a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bowling Green, works in institutional research and teaches at Western Kentucky University for the Honors College and Mathematics Department. He has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, a master's in mathematics, and a doctorate in higher education. Matt's interests include cinema, fine coffees and spirits, and the study of consciousness.
If I flunk the clicker thingy, you're in charge. So, good morning, welcome. And so, what's a cult? And if you ask different people what a cult is, you'll probably get different answers from each of the people that you ask. But today we're going to go into what the experts say and what really distinguishes what a cult is and what a cult is not. This really says it really well. What distinguishes a cult is not its beliefs. You can believe that the earth is flat. Now, that might suggest that you're an idiot, but it doesn't make you part of a cult. What distinguishes a cult are its practices, its procedures, and the things that it does, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So the three fundamental criteria that really distinguish a cult are the things that stand out and what you typically see with almost every cult. And cults are like lots of things. They're not all one size fits all. There's lots of different varieties. So one way to think about a lot of this presentation is think of it as items on a shelf, and then cults pick their particular recipe from all the ingredients that are on the shelf. Not every cult is the same. They're very, very different, and different ones have different ways that they do things based on their context. But almost always, you've got these three things. You've got charismatic leadership. Sometimes it's one guy or gal that thinks they're the Messiah and special things with God, et cetera, and they tell you that they're the one. You can probably think of quite a few of those just from paying attention to the news. Another one that's an even bigger component of what distinguishes a cult is the second item, and that's where I'm going to spend more time. Here it's said in fancy words, coercive persuasion. You can really just think of that as mind control. And that's what we're really going to get into, because that is what makes a cult, is its mind control practices. It's something that's actually more recent than you might think. We'll get there. The most obvious thing, the most salient, and if you're not sure what salient means, don't feel bad. I looked it up myself because like, what's salient again? I think salient is the most visible, the easiest to see, what really stands out. So what stands out the most with a lot of these cults is a destructive leadership, a leadership that completely commands and controls the members. And that's what is easiest to see and extremely, extremely common. You don't need that for a cult in terms of it being a single person. It can be a group of leaders, and there are cults where it is a group of leaders. Coercive persuasion, I have a lot more to say about this. We're going to get into it. I don't have the time to really do it justice, so you're going to have the experience of, oh, he's going pretty quick here, but I kind of have to. It's a Sunday morning. It's not a seminar, or it's not a semester class. All right, but it isn't actually, it's an intense attack. They take you over. They destroy your sense of self so that they can rebuild a new sense of self that serves the mission of the cult and its objectives and its agenda. They really take charge of you in a way that violates every boundary you could imagine. And I mean every boundary. We'll get there. First, in case it's not clear, it does not have to be religious. Most people immediately think, oh, it's a religious cult. It's a religion. They believe in whatever they believe, God coming down in the next day, and et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't have to be. There's numerous cults that have absolutely nothing to do with religions. And there's 4 basic types. So there's the religious. There's also political cults. And if you're paying attention to recent American history, you can probably fill in some of those blanks the way some of these people are believing some of the stuff they're believing and the way they get into their bubble. And bubble is a big part of what this is about, is isolating people inside of a bubble so that they can believe and think in a reality that is just nuts. So you can have political cults, and that's actually becoming more prevalent because of social media. You can also have, there's different ways to talk about this, education companies, self-development, self-improvement, the human potential movement. This actually has its roots back in the 60s. There's a lot of psychology behind this in terms of understanding mind control and understanding what is possible with the mind, understanding breakthroughs. And so there are organizations out there that say you can have a breakthrough in your life and see things you never saw before and become way more effective and way more happy. LifeSpring is the symbol there. LifeSpring is one of those development companies. They promise you that if you take this seminar and then you take it, and then if you take the next seminar and then you take a more advanced seminar, and it's just this string of things and you're shelling out the money, and then they ask you to recruit more people to take your courses, and there are these groups out there. Not every educational group is a cult, but some of them get very, very cult-like. I would argue that Scientology is one of these. If you really think about the way Scientology operates, it's not a religion. The reason they're calling themselves a religion is the tax break. And Scientology, you can look it up. There's this huge kerfuffle between Scientology and the IRS, and I mean huge, this huge kerfuffle about fighting for their tax-exempt status. L. Ron Hubbard, the man who founded Scientology, said, you know, a way to really get wealthy is create a religion, and then you don't have to pay any taxes. He actually said that. And he's a science fiction writer, so guess what he does? He does a good job making stuff up. So he made a bunch of stuff up, and then they create all these classes and all this stuff, and it's this whole structure, and you shell out, it is six-figure sums by the time you're finished. And you can learn a lot more about Scientology if you're interested. But I would say that Scientology fits this model more than actually a religious cult. And the literature makes no question about it. Scientology is a cult. There's also financials. All the network marketing stuff. Have you ever gotten sucked into one of these? You're supposed to sell soap to your kids and your friends and your grandma and your grandpa, and you have to buy the soap, of course, and they're gonna end up so wealthy, and no, you don't. You don't make that much money. In fact, you usually lose because of all the products that you have to buy. And the literature is now, there are articles where they actually distinguish how these multi-level marketing, they use cult techniques. They've learned how to do this. They've learned how to pressure people into joining and staying involved and continuing to buy the right soap and the right cleaner and the right whatever, which really enriches the senior leadership at the top of the chain. So those are the 4 types. This is the typical structure, and I put this in because I wanted you to understand that it's not this black-white thing. And in fact, almost nothing I'm talking about is black-white. If you're into mathematics, you know the difference between open and closed sets. Cults are open. It's a fuzzy border. It's not a hard border. So you can have people that are kind of involved with it. You can have people that take some courses here and there, people that get involved this way or that way, but they don't get sucked into the vortex, so to speak. You can have people at different levels, and that's what this is talking about. You've got your real members. These are the people that are truly involved, but they're not necessarily the core devotees, mission in life, etc. And then, of course, you've got your leaders. That's really what this slide is. Most cults are some version of this. Of course, it depends on the particular cult. For example, the Branch Davidians, not so fuzzy. You had to live on the compound, be part of that. You lived in a residential area owned by the cult. That makes this a little bit less open. Okay, how do they recruit? So what I'm going to talk about really today is how do they recruit? How do they get people? And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then once they get you, how do they keep you? So that's kind of the crux of what this morning is about. They don't advertise. Almost never. Now it is true, I saw them just last week, I think, on campus. Jehovah's Witness, which is a cult, Jehovah's Witnesses will set up booths. They'll set up a little table, they'll set up a booth, they'll have this little display with some pamphlets, and you can go up and ask about a pamphlet, and they'll talk to you about, from Eden to Armageddon is how they talk about it. Oh, well, we can talk you from Eden all the way to Armageddon, the various Jehovah's Witnesses. But in general, you're not going to, so you watch football this afternoon, you're not going to see a Scientology ad on TV. You're not going to see an ad for LifeSpring, Herbalife, Amway, etc. They don't work that way. The way a cult is going to show up on your radar is a friend, almost for sure. Somebody that's a friend or a friendly acquaintance, and in their meeting with their people, as they're being encouraged to share and encouraged to recruit with whatever group it is that they're involved with, they say, I ought to see if Sally'd be interested in coming to Friday's thing. And they invite you to Friday's thing. And then you go to Friday's thing. But a stranger could be, it could be events. And then, of course, with the rise of the internet and everything, social media is becoming more and more of a force. They're starting to figure out what they can post in different social media in order to get recruits. But typically, it's word of mouth, a person you know inviting you to something. And they say, you ought to check this out. This is something really interesting. And so you get into this sequence of events. And again, what I'm presenting is typical. It's not like cut dry. There are groups that offer differently. But what's really, really common is you're invited to some type of party, social event, night introduction of some kind where you're introduced to the ideas. And maybe that's 2 or 3 hours. Maybe it's free. There's food. It's very social. It's non-pressure. It's a friendly type of thing. And the purpose of that thing is to get you to come to the next one. And the next one might be some all-day event at a park, also might be free, or maybe you have to pay some money. I once paid $75 for this one-day meditation thing where they promised that you would get Shakti pot. If you go to this event, you'll get Shakti pot. So I went to the event, I paid my $90, I was there from like 8 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, and we chanted and we meditated and we sang and we did some other things and we ate real healthy food. And then this leader patted me on the head and said, you now have Shakti pot. So I have Shakti pot. Anyways, there's these different events, and you can, and the idea is it escalates. If it's a cult, it's going to escalate where they are asserting more and more control. And control is going to look like time, how long the events are, and where control really starts to happen is when they make it residential. You are at a place that has a border, and you don't leave the place. You're there. And they control when you get up. They control when you go to sleep. They control when you eat. They might even control what you wear. And it becomes more and more controlling, and then the length of time. So the book that I'm going to mention later on, Stephen Hassan, excellent book, I'm going to show it to you. He ended up at some training session, 3 weeks. You're locked up for 3 weeks. Now, they don't use the word lock up, but you kind of are. You're completely controlled for 3 weeks, and you go through the training sessions. And that's where the mind control stuff starts to happen that I'll get to. Who do they go after? These people are smart about this. They've been doing it for a while. Now, they weren't smart about this 100 years ago. All of this stuff that we're talking about really has its roots before World War II. And I don't want to get too dark here, but the Holocaust turned a lot of heads. Because people, you got a bunch of people to do what? People will do that? And I'm sure at least half the people in this room have heard of the Milgram experiment. The Milgram experiment is that super famous experiment where men in white coats told people to administer electric shocks to actors who were pretending to be in agony, and then they would even turn it to fatal. And this happened literally the same year that Eichmann went on trial saying, just following orders. Well, this experiment said people will follow orders. That's actually not fiction. And so that's part of the roots of where this technology is coming from. But anyways, who they go after, somebody who's recently divorced or went through a really horrible breakup and they're really suffering, somebody who's really lonely because they've lost friends or they've moved, they're in a new city that they've never been in before and they're all by themselves and they're lonely and they would like some support. Somebody dies. The empty nest. You got a woman that's been caring for kids for 18, 19, 20 years, and now they're off at whatever college. The empty nest syndrome. Now what am I going to do? I don't have these kids anymore. What's the carrot? Why would somebody join this? Instant social gratification. You have instant friends. They're your family now. You've got people that love you, or at least that's the appearance. You're the most wonderful thing in the world. I think it's my next slide. They've actually distinguished it. The Moonies actually have a name for it. They call it the love bomb. You get love bombed. You're the most wonderful person in the world. You're so great. We're so lucky to have found you. Where have you been? God, we wish we would have met you 10 years ago. It's so great that you found us. It's so great that we found you, etc., etc. You have things to do, people to see, etc. It's enticing. especially if you're a lonely introvert, something I know a little bit about. The financial ones will promise you wealth and riches. Join Amway, start selling soap to your kids. You'll become a millionaire. Anyways, and as always, don't knock sex. All right? You get access to people. We'll get into that a little bit. Sex is throughout a lot of this. Sex and money, right? All right, all this happens inside of a loving and supporting community. There's the Moonies. They had this down. Stephen Hassan, the book that I'm referring to, with him it was the Moonies. He got sucked into the Moonies, and this is not a stupid person. He got sucked into the Moonies, and he went to one of their weekend events. This is another thing they'll do, is they'll kind of gaslight. That's coming up. Is they'll invite you to something, say a Saturday, Sunday, and then you get there, and they go, no, it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You didn't know it was Monday too? They're good at that. Oh, you thought this thing ended at 8? No, this goes till 11. But they sucked you in. You said yes, thinking you'd be free at 8 o'clock. You didn't want to stay until 11, and if you had known it was till 11, you might have said no. They're good at that. All right? They have this down. It's an art. The children of God. I mentioned sex. Children of God is all about that, and I've got another slide on them in a little bit. David Berg was the man who started the cult. He was way into sex, and lots of it, and he actually distinguished the expression flirty fishing. And if you study cults, you'll actually learn about flirty fishing. He actually instructed the women members, who will do what they're told, to go out and seduce men. Bring men into the cult by letting them sleep with you. So join this cult and you're going to get a bunch. There's guys that respond to that. Manson did the same thing. Charlie Manson, of this, you guys have probably heard of Charlie Manson. Charlie Manson was just gifted at enticing young, lost women. I put girls up here intentionally. I'm well aware of the distinction between girls and women and age and the inappropriateness of referring to grown 40-year-old women as girls. But I put it up here because they are very young. The people that Manson recruited were like 16, 17, 15, very, very young women. And he told them, they were like ordered, commanded, and they did whatever they were told. Investigate the Manson family, you'll see that. They do whatever he tells them to do. He told them, have sex with the guys. Any guy that's a member gets some. Don't say no. And then he told the guys that that was the case. Well, effective way to recruit guys. Heaven's Gate. Here's another thing that they can promise you, enlightenment. If you join Heaven's Gate, we have access to the next level of human development. You are going to transcend what it is to be a human being. You're going to go to the next level in evolution. We've been evolving, right? Well, we have access to the next step. We're enlightened beings. Enticing for some, if you're lonely, etc. The doomsday cults. The earth is ending soon, and if you don't join us and get the keys to salvation, you're going to go with everybody else down the tubes when the second coming comes. Christ is not only coming, he's angry, and he's going to kill everybody that's not a member of our group. You're special if you join us. You won't die. You'll be saved. There's a zillion of them that talk like that. Lots of doomsday cults. The end is coming, not just someday, but someday soon. You better join us now. Write your check for. Okay. This Japanese guy, you may have heard of him. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. I'll just say Shinrikyo, and let's just leave it at that. He preached that. He combined Eastern religions with Christianity. He had to combine with Christianity because Eastern religions really aren't that into the end of the world and Buddha coming down and killing everybody he doesn't like. And Buddhists just don't tend to do that. You got to go to Christianity for that kind of a flavor. But that's what he promised, and he got some followers. More about him later. So just pointing out, and then I'm going to get to how they keep you. As social animals, we're vulnerable to these tactics. We're pack animals. We're like the dogs. We're not like the cats. And so we're vulnerable to this kind of thing. And once we get ensnared, they're good at keeping us there. And now I'm going to get to the heart of the talk. I can't do the justice in terms of time. But the best that I've seen in the research that I've done is Hassan's bite model. This is the mind control. This is what they do. This is how they control your head. Literally, this is it. This is how the sausage is made. Behavior, information, thought, emotion. They have tactics for all four. They control all four. We're just going to do a 40,000-foot glance. And again, think of these as items on a shelf that each cult selects and implements its pieces in its own recipe. Okay, it's not one recipe for everybody. So, behavior. Look at all the controls. Control where and when you live, your sexuality, your physical appearance. They might actually assign uniforms. Some of them do. What shoes you wear, how you cut your hair, what you eat, when you sleep, how much you sleep. Sleep deprivation is part of their methods. Financial exploitation. They insist that you contribute everything you own or a lot of what you have. Having to get permission to do things. There's actually cults where if you want to ask somebody to dinner, you have to ask so-and-so for permission to do so. Lots of rewards and punishments, and then also promoting dependence and obedience. Again, it's not black. These things can kind of blur together. Information, there's your bubble. We all know about bubbles because of the internet and social media now. There was bubbles before that. But this is the bubble machinery. Another thing that they do, and Scientology is good at this, except they don't call it confession. They call it auditing. What have you done in your past that's holding you back? What have you done that you're ashamed of? What have you done that you shouldn't have done? Et cetera, et cetera. And they record it. And so now they have the goods on you. And there's rumors about movie stars that got sucked into Scientology that are staying in Scientology because Scientology's got the goods on them. I'm not going to name names. Gaslighting. Oh, you thought it ended at 8? No, it ends at 11. And then another one that some cults do is they actually assign you a partner. And your partner and you have to be with each other all the time, so you never get to be alone. They're really good at keeping you from being alone because when you're alone, you might start to think. Thought. There's a lot on this slide. How they go about getting in your head and literally controlling the things that you think, the things that you see. Obviously, this ties to information, right? So they all blur together. The language, George Orwell's 1949 book, 1984, all about that. It's no accident that that came out after World War II, after the Holocaust. That caught George Orwell's attention big time. That's what produced 1984. He saw that and went, whoa, and then he wrote 1984, which of course is the government doing it. Thought-stopping techniques, I won't talk about that. And then a big one that I care a lot about, I teach a course in it, critical thinking. Critical thinking is a thing. It's not just thinking critically. It's a whole thing. I'll say a little bit more near the end. Critical thinking is like cult kryptonite. And I actually say that in a couple minutes. And then there's a lot of emotional abuse and a lot of emotional control. The key thing that I would say here that's really important is they do a very good job of instilling sheer terror at the thought of being outside the cult. They're very good at creating this notion that I live inside this, whatever it is. If I go out, not only will I not be happy, I won't survive. I can't live outside of the cult. They really instill that, and that explains why some of these people don't leave when you think, if that were me, I'd get out of there. Cults are inherently dangerous. Another thing I want to point out is that they're not static. They evolve. They change over time. Some of them didn't even start as cults. I think that the weight loss cult that happened in Nashville, you may have heard of it. There's this lady that formed this, you can Google it and look it up, and they made a documentary about her. She started this weight loss thing, and it evolved into a cult. I don't think it started as one. But you have to understand, these leaders, when they start realizing the power that they have, you've heard about absolute power. So let's talk about some of these cults, and then I'm going to wrap. There's a great video. I have actually not seen it. I'm afraid to watch it. I'm afraid I'm going to get so angry and upset and throw something at my TV and then regret that. But I haven't watched this one. I've watched some others. But apparently there's a very good documentary. This is FLDS. It's the fundamentalist LDS, Latter-day Saints, Mormons. Except these are the extreme Mormons, and this FLDS, the absolute authority, Warren Jeffs, his authority is so strong that he control, and this is about as misogynist, sexist a group you're ever going to see. Women are property. Period. Period. They're property. They're owned by the men with authority. Warren Jeffs actually has the authority that if he gets angry with a guy, he can take his wife and assign her to somebody else. And they say yes. The women go along with it. And the husbands go along with it. You're going to steal my wife and just give her to some other guy because I didn't do whatever you... That actually happens in this cult. Again, why would people stay? They don't think they can survive outside of it. Here's the Children of God again. You can read about these folks. They went after their kids. This became a massive pedophile organization. The kids were literally bred for sex. And they were having sex with children not even 10 years old yet. They got in huge trouble with the law. You can read about famous people, actors and actresses. I think Joaquin Phoenix, I think, might be one of the ones that was born. A lot of the children later committed suicide because of what they experienced inside of this cult. Colonia Dignidad, that's a dignity colony. These are Germans. They started as Germans. Not sure if you know, but after World War II, quite a few Germans, in particular those that were sympathetic to what was going on, fled to South America. And the Pinochet dictator, the Pinochet regime, was very sympathetic to those folks and friendly to them. And these people bought a huge piece of land. I mean, it's big. I don't remember dimensions, but it's big. And they kind of created like a country within a country. And then Paul Schaefer, who was already a convicted pedophile in Germany, he showed up in 1961 and kind of took the place over, and it literally became a breeding ground for young boys for him to have sex with. He was an absolute pedophile with boys. He wasn't into the women. He finally did get caught. Argentina, Chile finally had enough. Pinochet was gone, and then he fled to Argentina. Somehow he ended up getting caught finally, and he died in prison. That's still around. I don't know what it's morphed into now, but that's still there. Solar Temple. This is another one of those Christian Armageddon. Jesus is coming, not just someday, but someday soon. They thought a baby was the Antichrist. They killed it. They stabbed a baby with a wooden stake. And then they decided that wasn't enough, so they started killing themselves and each other. All sorts of death, murder, and mayhem occurred. 53 members committed suicide in one event. Solar Temple members, they believed after you kill yourself, you're going to be reborn on a star, and they even knew the star's name. Take a class in critical thinking, and you're not going to do that. Heaven's Gate, you've probably heard of these folks. These are the Hale-Bopp comet people. Remember that? Some of us are old enough to remember that. 1997, the Hale-Bopp comet came, and they believed that there was a spaceship on the other side of that comet, and if they killed themselves, they would be miraculously transported to that spaceship. They didn't go anywhere. And you may remember that from the news. They all wore the same clothes, and they had those same running shoes, and they were all found with purple sheets over them. They all died the same way. It was very organized. I did watch a detailed documentary on this group that was really, really worthwhile. These people were not demons quite the way some of these others are. They actually practiced what they preached, which is kind of uncommon. The Branch Davidians, I don't have to say much about that. What I will say is this is another one where the leader decided it was his place to have sex with everybody. David Koresh ordered all the men in the cult to take a vow of celibacy, and then all the women moved into the house with him, and he did all the women. The people complied. That's where I just like, they complied. The women complied, the men complied. I can't imagine a man being willing to, but they did. And of course, they all ended up dead, except for, a very small number. And here's this doomsday guy in Japan. He kept saying that Armageddon was going to happen, not just someday, but someday soon. It didn't happen. So he got impatient. And since Armageddon wasn't happening, he decided they'd kill people. So they started poisoning people on the subways with sarin gas. Well, the Japanese authorities weren't particularly fond of Japanese citizens being poisoned to death by sarin gas, so they investigated, figured out who it was, caught him, and he was executed. And I don't have to tell you too much about Jonestown. They drank the Kool-Aid. We're talking about out of 900 something, I think, like maybe 5, 6, 7 survived. All the rest ended up dead. So the happy ending, the endings are not too happy when you get involved with cults. And I've completely skipped over all the horrendous stuff that people go through once they get sucked in and become servants of the cult. How do you not become one? This is actually the shortest part of my presentation. It's really a 2-step process that I think works perfectly. 1, learn critical thinking. And as I said earlier, critical thinking is a thing. It's something to learn. This is an elementary textbook. It's a textbook. An elementary textbook for undergrads, freshmen and sophomores. You can go to Stanford's philosophy department, and they've got a website that is anything but for undergrads. It's very advanced. Critical thinking is a big, big thing. You can really get very, very advanced in that. You don't have to be very advanced at all in order to have what cults try to do. You'll just be like, you want me to what? You're saying what? Critical thinking, like I said, it's kryptonite for what cults are trying to do. And then the other thing, learn about cults. These are 2 books that I highly recommend. I think Hassan, if you only read one, I think Hassan's book is probably the best. He has personal experience with the Moonies, big time. He was in it for years, became one of the he became one of that core, and then actually into the sub-leader. He actually met the Reverend Moon, knew the Reverend Moon. He got very high up, and then, of course, the light bulb went on, and he realized what was going on, and then he became somebody that studies and writes about cults. And then Rick Ross is a very famous cult expert that's written lots of books on the subject. If you know about cults and you know how to do some critical thinking, you're going to be backing away from that really quick. And in a certain respect, I'm preaching to folks that don't even need to hear any of this, because if you were a UU joining a cult, I mean, that's just like, we're recalcitrant, we're the rebels. We've already said no to all the religions. That's kind of what we are. I mean, one of our texts, free and responsible search for truth. That's what we are, free and responsible search for truth. There's no room for that in a cult. So really, I'm telling folks that least need to hear it in terms of being safe from a cult. And that's what I had to say today. So I hope you found that worthwhile. Again, in the amount of time I had, this was pretty much what I thought I could put together. So thanks so much for listening to me. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. That was great. So Forrest will lead us in our closing hymn. Oh, I'm so sorry. There it is. It takes a community. So this congregation and the work we do is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who contribute. The offering is a sacrament of the Free Church. Our greeters will now pass the collection plate. You may also use the QR code on the screen or donate via our website. As we enjoy the music, the offering will be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values.
Tell all you fascists you may be surprised. People all over this world are getting organized. You're bound to lose. Oh, you fascists bound to lose. Hatred can't stop us, this one thing we know. Your poll tax and Jim Crowing free, they've gotta go. You're bound to lose. Oh, you fascists bound to lose. All you fascists are bound to lose. All you fascists are bound to lose. All you fascists are bound to lose. You're bound to lose. All you fascists bound to lose. People of every color marching side by side. They're marching across these fields where a million fascists died. You're bound to lose. before this battle's won, you're bound to lose. Oh, you fascists bound to lose. All you fascists, you're bound to lose. All you fascists, you're bound to lose. All you fascists, you're bound to lose. You're bound to lose. All you fascists, bound to lose. All you fascists, you're bound to lose. All you fascists, you're bound to lose. All you fascists, you're bound to lose. You're bound to lose. All you fascists, bound to lose.
Awesome. We thank you for these gifts. May we use them wisely in the service of our congregation and our community. As your service associate, grateful appreciation goes to today's service coordinator, Roxanne Spencer, our musicians, and our, obviously, man behind the curtain, tech advisor Matt. Okay, so we have some announcements. So you're invited to share in the UUBGKY, that's us, Thanksgiving potluck dinner. Join us Thursday, November 24th, 2 to 4 p.m. in the Fellowship Hall. Sign-up posters will be outside of the sanctuary to sign up for bringing a dish to share. All are welcome. A $5 donation is optional. We need 5 volunteers to set up and clean up. So volunteers get to eat free, so that's a help. Turkey will be provided by the church. Please be aware of possible food allergens or dietary preferences when you're making your what you're bringing, and include a note with your dish to be shared. We look forward to sharing Thanksgiving with you members and friends. We also have the membership team would like to invite everyone who would like to learn more about Unitarian Universalism and our church to come to a question and answer session after church the second Sunday of each month, starting next Sunday, November 13th. Okay. Matt Hazel has a quick announcement as well.
So as you can see, the new Wi-Fi for this building is completely ready. It was half ready for a little while, but Cassie's husband put up the new crown molding, and thus there is now Wi-Fi across all the building. At the end of the presentation, there will be the new password and the new Wi-Fi name if you would like to connect to it before you leave today. Thank you. That's all.
Matt, I also noticed there's now a guest one, which I think is wonderful.
Yes, we have an official guest one now.
I'd like to say just one more thing about Thanksgiving. We have posters. I have the sign up. I'd like to know, if I haven't talked to you already, whether you'll be able to be here or not. So I won't keep bugging you. Or not. But if you would please see me after church, I have it not already on the list. So it will be Thanksgiving Day and at 2 o'clock. And you don't have to cook unless you want to just bring some side dish. We would really appreciate that. So, please see me.
And I just wanted to make an announcement about our last hymn. If you don't know it, it's number 1028 in the teal hymnal. And if you're a person who likes to read along with notes, get that. If you don't know it, don't worry. A lot of us do know it. You'll be really lost on the first verse, but by the third verse, you'll have it.
Tim Decker had one quick announcement as well.
This is kind of a weird one, like out of a science fiction movie. But anyway, Greg and Forrest, we have these bonfires to get rid of construction debris yearly, sometimes twice a year. Anyway, tonight's bonfire, we're going to have to fire this off tonight. I have built some curved walls that manipulate the air that goes into the bonfire to make the bonfire rotate. This will produce a tornado of fire, and it will produce a real tornado of fire with winds over 70 miles an hour. This will be ignited at 5 p.m. It will not last long. By about 5:30 or so, everything will be over as far as that part. It'll be once again back down to a regular bonfire format. So anyway, for more information, I'll be in the fellowship hall after the service for more information if people want it. So anyway.
This is a BYOB event.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Michelle Steiner and I went to a political candidates forum on judges. And many of us really don't know the judges that are up for election, and if you haven't already voted, we welcome your questions. Speaking for Michelle, yes, about this, who we might know and what we learn from each one that showed up. Only one didn't show up, so we can tell you about the others. We will be in the fellowship hall for a few minutes later. Second one, of course, this is the world's greatest artist, whatever it is. World's greatest studio tour. The world's greatest studio tour. This weekend. Come out, wherever you are. And I will tell you that at our place, the drive is beautiful. Okay? I mean, we're in early fall. It's absolutely gorgeous. So do come out. It'll be from after church till 4:30 or 5. We'd love to see you there. If you need the address, just let me know. And there are other places too. Becky, do you want to? I want to go back to your first thing. Okay. Finish. Whoa, what place? Is the bonfire at your place too, or is
No.
that connection?
It's at our house. Greg and Cora's house.
Fuller House.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, I have been told this by several people, if you vote a straight ticket, you might skip voting for your judges. So I guess it's on the other side of the ballot.
No.
Judges are nonpartisan. So if you vote straight ticket, you haven't yet voted for your commissioners. And we love to talk commissioners, folks.
Right.
And our judges, okay? And amendments. And the amendments too. Right, because they are not partisan, quote unquote. Okay, so after we do vote straight ticket, then also look for the rest. You're not done yet.
But you can't vote for the other things if you vote.
No, yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
When I voted, they said you couldn't do that.
Okay, we called the county clerks in both Warren County and Warren County. If you vote straight ticket, you must go on then and mark the other people individually.
So that's interesting, because this was one of the officers of the election.
Exactly.
So
All still do, that's the way it was.
I mean, I wasn't doing straight tickets,
No,
so
I was voting individually anyway, but you may. The important thing is there's a backside to the ballot, and a lot of straight ticket people think, well, I'm done, and they don't. But if you turn your ballot over, you can mark any of them individually, and they still would count.
Now, I don't know if this is everywhere, but in Allen County, you put your paper ballot into a machine. The machine said that I had not answered. I had not chosen one.
No, it doesn't do that, because I didn't choose some on purpose, and mine didn't mark them over.
They were gonna give it back to me tomorrow.
I only voted for.
So either way, be careful when you mark your ballot, especially if you're going straight ticket.
Yes, make sure you vote for those items that you want to vote for, okay? Like the amendments, the commissioners, the judges, make sure that you vote on those. And
Okay.
I still have signs, no on the amendment, trying to get rid of them. If I don't get rid of them, I'm going out tomorrow, and they're gonna
Stick 'em.
be, those just about full.
Thank you.
In Allen County, I put out 2 and the vote was on.
Um, Thank you. If you have any questions about Unitarian Universalism or about joining this congregation, please speak to someone on our membership team, our board president, John Downing, or email president at uubgky.org. You may find out More about us, including community news, by reading our weekly email updates, and if you aren't signed up for those, please do. We got a bulletin board out there that we could take a look at. We have Facebook, YouTube, and other online opportunities as well.
Oh yes, here we are with our Fire Commitment 1028. Stand as you are willing or able. Get right to it.
This morning. And Roxanne Spencer will give our final reading.
This is from Adrienne Rich. Responsibility to yourself means refusing to let others do your thinking, talking, and naming for you. It means learning to respect and use your own brains and instincts, hence, grappling with hard work.
We now bid farewell to those who have joined us online. We hope you found this service meaningful, and we invite you to join us again. Be well and go in peace.